What do you think is the future of Python in the next 10, 20, 50 years, 100 years? You look forward. You ever imagine a future of human civilization while living inside the metaverse, on Mars, humanoid robots everywhere? What part does Python play in that?
It'll eventually become sort of a legacy language that plays an important role, but that most people have never heard of and don't need to know about, just like all kinds of basic structures in biology, like mitochondria.
So it permeates all of life, all of digital life, but people just build on top of it.
Right.
And they only know the stuff that's on top of it.
Yeah. Because you build layers of abstractions. I mean, most programmers nowadays rarely need to do binary arithmetic, right?
Yeah, or even think about it, or even learn about it, or they could go quite far without knowing.
I started building little digital circuits out of NAND gates that I built myself with transistors and resistors. So I feel very blessed that with that start when I was a teenager, I learned some of the basic, at least concepts that go into building a computer. And I every part, I have some understanding what it's for and why it's there and how it works. And I can forget about all that most of the time, but I enjoy knowing, if you go deeper, at some point you get to NAND gates and half adders and shift registers. And when it comes to the point of how do you actually make a chip out of silicon, I have no idea. That's just magic to me.
But you enjoy knowing that you can walk a while towards the lower and lower layers, but you don't need to. It's nice.
The other day, as a sort of a mental exercise, I was trying to figure out if I could build a flip-flop circuit out of relays. I was just sort of trying to remember, how does a relay work? Yeah, there's like this electromagnetic force that pulls a switch open or shut. And you can have like, it can open one switch and another, shut another, and you can have multiple contacts that go at once. And how many relays do I really need to sort of represent one bit of information? Can the relay just feed on itself? And I don't think I got to the final solution, but it was fun that I could still do a little bit of problem solving and thinking at that level.
And it's cool how we build on top of each other. So there's people that are just, you stood on the shoulders of giants, and there's others who'll stand on your shoulders, and it's a giant, beautiful hierarchy.
Yeah, I feel I sort of cover this middle layer of the technology stack where it sort of peters out below the level of NAND gates. And at the top, I lose track when it gets to machine learning.
And then eventually the machine learning will build higher and higher layers that will help us understand the lowest layer of the physics. And thereby the universe figures out how it itself works.
Maybe not. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, if you think of human consciousness, if that's even the right concept, it's interesting that sort of we have this super parallel brain that does all these incredible parallel operations like image recognition. I recognize your face. There's huge amount of processing that goes on in parallel. There's lots of nerves between my eyes and my brain, and the brain does a whole bunch of stuff all at once because it's actually really slow circuits, but there are many of them that all work together. On the other hand, when I'm speaking, everything is completely sequential. I have to sort of string words together one at a time. And when I'm thinking about stuff, when I'm understanding the world, I'm also thinking of everything like one step at a time. And so we've got all this incredible parallel circuitry in our brains, and eventually we use that to simulate a single threaded, much higher level interpreter.
It's exactly. I mean, that's the illusion of it. That's the illusion of it for us, that it's a single sequential set of thoughts, and all of that came from a single cell through the process of embryogenesis. So DNA is the code. DNA holds the entirety of the code, the information, and how to use that information to build up an organism. The entire, like, the arms, the legs.
How is it built? Yeah.
The brain. It's you don't buy a computer. You buy like a
seed, a diagram.
And then you plant the computer, and it builds itself in almost the same way, and then does the computation, and then eventually dies. It gets stale, but gives birth to young computers more and more, and gives them lessons, but they figure stuff out on their own. And over time, it goes on that way. And those computers, when they go to college, try to figure out how to program, and they built their own little computers. They're increasingly more intelligent, increasingly higher and higher levels of abstractions.
Isn't it interesting that you see the same thing appearing at different levels, though? Because you have like cells that create new cells, and eventually that builds a whole organism. But then the animal or the plant or the human has its own mechanism of replication that is sort of connected in a very complicated way to the mechanism of replication of the cells. And then if you look inside the cell, if you see how DNA and proteins are connected, then there is yet another completely different mechanism whereby proteins are mass produced using enzymes and a little bit of code from DNA. And of course, viruses break into it at that level.
And while the mechanisms might be different, it seems like the nature of the mechanism is the same, and it carries across natural languages and programming languages, humans, maybe even human civilizations or intelligent civilizations, and then all the way down to the single cell organisms.
It is fascinating to see what abstraction levels are built on top of individual humans.
Yeah.
And how you have like whole societies that sort of have a similar self-preservation, I don't know what it is, instinct, nature, abstraction, as the individuals have and the cells have. And
they self-replicate and breed in different ways. It's hard for us humans to introspect it because we were very focused on our particular layer of abstraction. But from an alien perspective, looking on Earth, they'll probably see the higher level organism of human civilization as part of this bigger organism of life on Earth itself. In fact, that could be an organism just alone, just life on Earth. This has been a wild, both philosophical and technical conversation, Guido. You're an amazing human being. You were gracious enough to talk to me when I was first doing this podcast. You're one of the earliest first people I've talked to, somebody I admired for a long time. It's just a huge honor that you did it at that time and you do it again. You're awesome.
Thank you, Lex.